Welcome back. The battle over potential gun legislation heating up in the wake of recent mass shootings. President Trump says there is an appetite in Congress for tightening background checks. But top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer pouring cold water on some Republicans' push to boost red flag laws, making it easier for authorities to remove guns from people found to be an immediate danger. Schumer in a statement saying, quote, "The notion that passing a tepid version of an extreme risk protection order bill alone is even close to getting the job done and addressing rampant gun violence in the U.S. is wrong and would be an ineffective cop-out." Meantime, New York City Mayor and 2020 Democrat candidate Bill de Blasio sparring over the gun control issue with their own Sean Hannity last night. Watch.
We don't have sufficient background checks.
I have a gun carry license in New York. I have to walk over hot coals to get
about the whole country.
Well, it's hard to get.
And by the way, ask the NYPD and they'll tell you they believe in strong gun laws to keep officers and civilians safe.
And if somebody breaks into their house, would you respect their right to have a firearm in their house?
Everyone deserves to be safe. The answer is not for everyone to have a firearm any more than it's for every teacher to have a firearm.
So the answer is no. If somebody breaks into their house, they're good people, they're law-abiding people, pay their taxes, obey the rules, pass the background check. Should they have a right to a gun in their house? Yes or no?
I ain't buying what you're selling.
Go, rationality. I get it. Wow.
I don't understand that comeback.
No.
I'm not buying what you're selling. He was asking a question. He wasn't selling anything.
No,
I didn't get that.
And please explain that. Human beings have the right to defend themselves, particularly when they are attacked. And if you're running for president, and if you want to run this great country, and de Blasio wants to run it into the ground, you have to be able to answer basic questions.
Yeah, and he didn't. He didn't even remotely answer the question. There were a bunch of other bits like that. It was just that was astonishing. But Dagan, I would say you see Chuck Schumer already coming out and saying that if these red flag laws are passed, that's a cop-out. And to me, that means that he thinks it's going to pass. So he wants to make sure that, or something along those lines, is going to come to fruition. He wants to make sure that he dismisses it as nothing ahead of time.
Exactly. It does look like that something would happen. I suspect it will be along the lines of what Richard Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham, senators both, are trying to do about offering grants, federal grants, to the states that do implement these laws. And we've talked about this, I think there's 17 states now in the District of Columbia. There were only 5 before the Parkland shooting, although most in motion. They're exceedingly complicated. It would be nice to have a federal template for them, because you go state by state. They're very complicated. But by the way, to be clear, in New York City, you do not have the right to defend yourself, period. It is exceedingly difficult to get a permit to have a gun in your home. It is nearly impossible to get a concealed carry permit. You have to basically be rich or know somebody in the government.
Even rich people can't get them.
To get a concealed carry permit. And the New York City law is on deck to be reviewed. There's one part of it by the Supreme Court. It is the fact that if you have a permit to keep a gun in your home, a handgun, you cannot carry it outside of the city limits. There are like a handful of gun ranges that you can take it to. That's it. Unconstitutional, violates the Second Amendment, and New York City is doing everything in its power to kind of skirt review by SCOTUS with a number of different filings. I hope it's on deck. It's the first Second Amendment case that the Supreme Court has taken up in a decade. And you know what? New Yorkers deserve to have their constitutional rights protected.
All right, but I want to bring Chris in, because the conversation has certainly shifted, and Republicans are being much more aggressive in talking about gun control for the first time in quite some time. The problem is, when you hastily cobble these things together, it's very easy to erode basic civil rights.
It is. That's the key thing. Basic civil rights, basic constitutional rights. I think there's a difference between a red flag law that points out someone who has openly and publicly called for or threatened mass shootings. Those people should be flagged immediately, and we should have additional options to be able to take care of that. Just as an example, Governor Abbott in Texas, after the Sutherland Springs shooting, brought together Republicans and Democrats and passed, I believe it was 23 different additional regulations that allowed the government to be able to get involved and to prevent these types of tragedies. Now, it's tough when you have somebody who puts a gun in their car from Plano, Texas, and drives to El Paso and goes to a Walmart and know that's going to happen. But I do think that shows what can happen when you have bipartisan support and Republicans and Democrats come together for real common sense solutions. And the fact is, the Democrats, and particularly Schumer, would rather have a campaign issue on this than save people's lives. And that's the bottom line. And because he immediately calls it dead on arrival, it's not enough. We won't even hear it.
Why don't you find the aspects that you agree on and work from there?
Well, that's what you're supposed to do when you actually are tasked with governing. And I would suggest that our federal lawmakers look to the states, because there are a number of different examples across the country where they can pull from and create a federal template. It is an opportunity. And I think that we do see Republicans rising to the occasion, particularly in my home state of Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine. We've seen Congressman Mike Turner as well, whose daughter was right across the street from that Dayton shooting. And so I hope that this is a real opportunity to have a candid conversation on this issue rather than create a political back and forth.
Can I say one real quick thing? There's a gun buyback program still in place. You wouldn't know about it here in New York City. Get $200 if you turn in a handgun. They give you a letter that has been Xeroxed like 1,000 times, signed by Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
And he's going to take your guns and your soda. All right.